How's it going, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Chaps podcast. So today we've got another book club for you, and the book that I've just finished reading and the book of topic today is The Wealth Money Can't Buy by Robin Sharma. So Robin Sharma, probably most famously known for the 5am Club, another great book that I'd recommend, one that I personally love. Not a lot of people like it. Not that a lot of people like it. Said that terribly wrong. Some people don't like it because of how it's structured and the story within it, but I think that's brilliant. And if you've never read it, check that out. But we're going to go into The Wealth Money Can't Buy, the 8 Hidden Habits to Live Your Richest Life. So, as you can imagine, this book is about 8 different habits that show us what happiness can be provided in different ways than just having wealth. And wealth is one of them habits. So when we get through, the different sections and that, I don't want it to seem hypocritical that we start talking about wealth and money and things like that. However, the book breaks it down and explains it perfectly. A lot of people in today's society see money as the solution to all their problems and what will fix all their issues and make them happy. And then Robin Sharma does this brilliant thing where he talks about clients that he mentors or coaches who are, billionaires and multi-millionaires, and it could be absolute bollocks, but the message that he reiterates with these people that he coaches is they have all this money and yet still find some emptiness in their life. And, them are the people at the end of the spectrum. And, for most people like myself, we're at this lower end and this mid end where we get by and we make money to sort of sustain our lives. But we always think we need more money. And if we had more money, all of our issues would dissipate fast. And, happiness would be this ever-present sort of fountain that we could just take from. But he really reiterates that money alone doesn't equate to real wealth. And the book again is storytelling, but not quite as story focused as the 5am Club. I think this is more of a personal anecdote of him when he moves to Italy and lives on a vineyard, which again, I can see why, people wouldn't be raving mad about that narrative of this obvious millionaire who is potentially preachy about how, you don't need money to have happiness, but in reality probably has a lot of excess money going around. But I think you've got to remove that from the forefront of your mind and not sort of be bitter towards Robin's personal journey and his story. You've got to just take the message in what he's saying and what he's trying to relay to you as the reader and myself as the reader. And I think once you get past that and you don't go in with that preconception and maybe that pessimism towards his personal situation, you do get a lot from the book. I really enjoyed it. I found myself staying up, fighting sleep, because this is the sort of stuff that I read before bed because it's quite meditative, it's quite relaxing, it doesn't require a lot of brain power. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. So getting into sort of the first one, which is growth, and the chapter is called The Daily Self-Improvement. And it's a great one and something that relates for me and relates to the podcast massively of what I'm trying to get across with having these guests on and talking about their stories and their situations, is that continuous personal growth is the foundation of a successful life, a happy life, not being stagnant in where you are and what you've already done, having some purpose and some drive to be better. And that's a common theme that we have with all these people that we've on, be that, fitness coaches, business owners, actors, nutritionists. There's always a reoccurring theme of this, and there's some notable takeaways in it, and it's sort of, the main one is reflection on your own greatness, and greatness is a big word. It sounds a bit narcissistic to be like, oh, I'm great at X, Y, and Z, but it has a point to understand that you are great at certain things, and to put yourself down and piss on your own bonfire isn't going to do anything for you, for your self-esteem, for you going forward. And this chapter really, it dives into that and wants you to pick at what you're good at and really channel into it and nail down and focus on them points and get better at being great. And I love that. And it really goes into this phrase that you need to stop saying, and it's "I'll try." And the book explains it a lot better than I probably ever could, but the way in which he delivers it and sort of the negative associations with "I'll try," it seems already defeated before you do it. And yeah, I took a lot away from this chapter, especially with the podcast and things like that, rather than seeing it as comparing yourself to others. You reflect on what you do currently and how that is already, good, and what you could do better with that greatness. He has this great principle, and it's the PNAM. Parents, environment, nation, associations, and media. That's what shape our beliefs. And when you look into the PNAM structure, what is it that has given you your beliefs about yourself, and is it always true? We look at where we live, our environment in which we grew up, our parents, the associates that we make. They're massive. They're sort of things that we can't really change. They are just given to us in the situation that we're put in. But at the end of the day, you have all this freedom in the world to make your own decisions, disconnect from people that don't see the good in you and don't bring out the best in you. And that PNAM principle in that section is really interesting and something that, again, when you think about it, you are born into a lot of your situations and a lot of your surroundings, but that doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. And he goes that fear is a ghost stories most of the time, that most fears are imagined and limit our potential. We put these glass ceilings on ourselves which don't really mean anything. The second one is wellness and optimizing your health. True wealth includes physical, mental, and emotional well-being. Again, something that we go over all the time with the podcast. It talks about nature a lot. He's a big advocate of nature in this book, and I think it's a massive thing. He talks about us being consumed by technology and the fast pace of society and all that stuff. Again, that if you're an avid listener of the podcast, you'll know we combat that. We look into challenging that notion and is it okay and is it right? And obviously, I've supported the benefits of technology by doing this podcast and having the capacity to do it. But he also really advocates disconnecting from that. He talks about small, consistent mindfulness practice and how that can transform stress and change our view on ourselves and the world. And again, meditation, when we talked about it in the Year in Review podcast. And when Rory came on the most recent podcast, everyone mentions about the benefit of meditation and they wish they did it. Exercise enhances focus and longevity. So again, going back to the wellness, treating exercise and training as something as a priority, as an escape, as a means to de-stress, have that purpose. We go back to growth and self-improvement, and fitness marries so well with that, and training marries so well with that. And then the third one, which is a big one, is family. And obviously you talked about the PNAM principle before, and it might seem a bit counterintuitive, but it talks about having strong relationships, not necessarily, family, but it does talk about that a lot, and how we should focus on our relationships more than material successes. And something that I love and have sort of made a personal note of is that he says your choice of mate is 90% of your joy. The importance of choosing the right partner. And if you think about that, there's someone that you live with, someone that you decide to spend the rest of your life with or your time with. 90% is probably about right. You're deciding to be with this person as much as you want to be. And sometimes people are in relationships for the wrong reasons. And it goes back to other things we've talked about in the podcast about sunk cost fallacy. And I think James Smith talks about it a lot on his podcast and in his books, and going back again to other topics in this book about assessing your relationships and seeing if they're doing the best for you. It all sort of comes full circle, and that's what I really like about it. Every chapter marries back into itself. And it talks about sort of happiness comes from small everyday moments. Again, we're in a society where we think these big achievements and these big milestones, and once we get them, we'll finally have happiness. But it really instills about just the small, almost micro events that go on in our day, contributing to the majority of our happiness. Number 4 is craft. The work as a platform for purpose. Again, for me, I connect with this. This podcast is that for me. Really probably the chapter that I resonated with the most, because it talks about avoid the no one will notice it lie. And I do this podcast and it doesn't get, thousands or particularly lots of views. but it doesn't mean no one will notice it. Someone might notice it and it have a profound effect on what they do in their life, and that knock-on effect from that is essentially the reason of why I'm doing it. But it also talks about if something's shit and you do something wrong, and don't just be lazy with it, which I am probably guilty of. I made a few slip-ups in this episode already. Will I go out and edit them out and change them out? Probably not. People will probably listen to it and turn off because I've made a few mistakes or made a few stammers. And again, it's holding yourself accountable to having that excellence. Learning is your superpower, and going back to growth and then coming into craft as well. Lifelong education is crucial for success, and this is where modern day, going back to sort of almost hypocrisy on the technologies, you've got so much information at your fingertips. You've got all these podcasts, you can go online and get a PDF about pretty much anything. You can read research studies, you can listen to interviews with the forefront of whatever industry it is, and get so much trinket for information that why wouldn't you continue to learn? Why wouldn't you want to better yourself and learn more about whatever it is that you want to do? But one of the most interesting points of this is it was stop copying your heroes. And again, I'm probably guilty of this, looking at people that I look up to in the podcast world and people that are successful. And I imagine we've all done it. We sort of try and replicate people's stories to emulate their success, when in reality a lot of these people forged their own path, did their own thing, went against the common narrative to get success. And that's not always the case, but Robin talks about being your own person and moving forward, and I think that's super important. And if anyone's sort of with a business or doing something that is in the footsteps of someone else who inspired them, maybe it's not the optimum thing to just copy them and do whatever they did. Number 5 is money, and I mentioned that, and I think it's quoted as the prosperity is fuel for freedom, and it's talking about how money is a tool, not a goal, and that's why he mentions it in the book. It's talking about living beneath your means, working like that, how more people who help with money seem to receive money in studies, and just, again, I don't think it's sort of quantitative data, it's more qualitative, and talking about lived scenarios and experiences that he's had and heard from other people. But again, sort of looking into the past and how our childhood money beliefs shape our financial habits, and how we can maybe move away from that through, again, learning, education, and tooling ourselves, having the right weapons to understand that money won't buy us happiness, but it's a tool in which we can do more to be happy. 6 is community. The you become your social network. The people around you shape your future. And that's bang on, I think, if you think about it. There's obviously always that expression that the 3 people you spend most of your time with is who you'll become. And I think that's not factually true. I think it's a bit like when they say that Einstein said, repeating the same process and expecting a different outcome's insanity. I don't think that's Einstein. But it's one of them things where we just think it's true because we've said it so much. And the things he talks about is really getting a group that elevate you, and sort of surround yourself with people who almost do have similar goals, or even if they don't have similar goals, call you out on your bullshit, challenge you to be a better version of yourself, rein you in when you might be getting a little big for your boots or carried away with newfound success or anything like that. And there's a good bit in it where it says talk to weirdos, whatever phrase that is, but it's saying engage with diverse perspectives, and don't put yourself in a box away from other people, because you don't know what their experience might be to you. You don't know what that trinket of crazy information could do to inspire you. Talking about wishing people a great day, small kindness creates ripples of positivity, be a major gift giver, them sort of things. And as much as they are, again, all cliches, the way in which he describes it and talks about it, the topics are really powerful, and the stories that he relays are obviously anecdotal, but they're sort of heartwarming and you get invested in them pretty quick. 7 is adventure, and it's saying life is richer when you prioritise experience over things. Again, moving away from the material expectations of today's society, and rather than having things, it's doing things, experiencing things, getting out into nature again, going and doing things with your community, with your group, and it just makes perfect sense. It sounds so almost. It sounds like I shouldn't even be relaying it to people, because when we think about it and we sit and we'd reflect on these things, of course it makes sense to go out and experience things rather than buy material things, but we're all so caught up in almost keeping up with the Joneses that we do prefer our dopamine hits, and we do prefer the buzz we get from ordering something off Amazon or, eBay, anything like that, rather than getting out and experiencing new things with our friends. And it talks about doing something scary. Like, I can think of things that scare me. It'd be like bungee jumping, skydiving. I think I'm too heavy to skydive. But, doing things that you never think about doing. Like, I would never go on roller coasters until about 3 months ago, and now I love them. Like, I enjoy going on them. So doing something scary and realising that it's not that scary, or even the buzz that you get from it, the memorable moments in your life and things that give you new experiences. There's a good one where he talks about taking a digital sabbatical, and I think he talks about at least one day a week that he has a day where from sunrise to sunset he has no technology. Again, someone in his position, it's probably a lot easier than someone else, but there isn't really an excuse for us to not try it, or even try shorter periods than a full day and have that detox and that break. I've done it in the past where I've not had things like Instagram and Facebook on my phone, and you do feel sort of mentally clearer, you do feel better for it. It is something that's interesting. Maybe that's my own personal experience. I know a lot of people can't even imagine a world without social media and seeing what's going on next. But once you get out of that habit, that habitual cycle of just opening it because you're bored and doom scrolling and getting that boost of dopamine or that little rush from it, once you don't rely on that, you realise that it actually isn't that important. It actually doesn't really benefit much to your life. And I think that's a big thing that we could do more. And I think the main thing that he talks about in adventure is that happiness is something that truly comes from within. It's not from external things. And that might sound a bit weird when he's talking about going out and doing things with other people, because they are sort of external factors. But again, they're intrinsic, because it should be something you want to do. It should be something that you want to go and experience these things, because it brings you happiness, it brings you new experiences. Although there's external factors in it, he talks about it being sort of an intrinsic motivation, and that's where this joy comes from and this real happiness. And the last sort of the 8 sections that he talks about is service, and something that I've not really thought about before. And I think when you go into religion and things like that, it talks about giving back and service a lot. And when you read this chapter, if you're not someone that, like myself, doesn't spend a lot of time with sort of religious writings and, the Bible or anything like that, it's quite insightful to see how much giving back can contribute to happiness, and how much service can make you feel good. And the examples he gives, we can all relate to them. We can all relate to a time that we've done something nice for somebody and we felt that, it feels almost selfish that you're doing something to help someone else to make you feel better. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be viewed as selfish. It should be viewed as two people are getting some joy out of it, or getting an experience that makes them both feel better. And yeah, this was probably my favourite chapter, the last one, and it sort of motivated me to do more and be a better person, to try and at least do something where, even if it's just complimenting someone or asking them if they had a nice day, or doing a small gesture that has no cost or no sort of real strain on your life, but would just make someone smile. Yeah, it's a really heartfelt chapter, and I'm really glad he ended the book with it, because it sort of gives you a sense. It's probably the most motivating chapter, and that might just be my personal experience, but yeah, service is such a massive thing that we probably, again, in today's society, just overlook. So, I mean, the final thoughts of it really, really shot through it. I didn't want to do a massive episode on it, but again, it's a book that I think people should read, people should try. It's a very, very easy read. It's not as much as a hard read as the 5am Club. The 5am Club could be a hard read just because of the story and sort of the madness of it. but if you stuck with it, it was really beneficial. This one is, you could just pick it up and drop in and drop out whenever you like. But you do get a lot from it. You do get a lot of insight. You do get a lot of reassurance. And again, you do get motivation from it, maybe from aspects of your life within them 8 sort of habits that you might not be doing too as much as you realise. And it sort of gives you that kick up the arse to be like, maybe I should do this more and see if that can bring me some happiness. But I think it really targets people who are, unfulfilled, maybe worried about financial stresses, and again, personal development. I think that's what drawn it to me. Robin Sharma is someone that I listen to the majority of his podcasts. I've read a few more of his books. I just like him, and I always find that I get something new from if I listen to something or if I read something of his, even if it's sort of repeating or saying something in a similar way to what's always been said. The way in which he delivers it is always fresh, if that makes sense. But yeah, very quick, very chaotic, bit of a fast-paced blip through. I know I've been going for like 20 minutes, just rambling on shit. But check the book out. And before we go, thanks for joining. We've got some guests coming up. Got some big guests coming up. Looking forward to them. Always love getting guests on. Going to an event next weekend, and we'll give a little recap about that and what's going forward for sort of me and the podcast. But, I'd say go and listen to this book, and if you don't listen to this book, out of the 8 subjects I've picked, maybe go away and pick one of them things to work on and see if you do get something from it. See if it does provide you with a bit more happiness or a bit more purpose without sounding like a hypocrite. But pick one, just do it for a week and see, even if it's service, that you say something nice to someone every day, you help someone with the shopping to the car, something like that, and just see how it goes. But yeah, check out the sponsor, Verba Strength. Shout out to them guys. Thank you for always supporting the podcast. Use Average Jack at checkout. Head over to www.veribastrength.co.uk, and that's Average Jack at checkout. Head over to my website, www.jackmckeeran.co.uk. See what I'm up to. Subscribe to the newsletter. Check out where you can purchase the book, Habits, Happiness and Health. That's my book. And yeah, peace.